Hello everyone! So the quality is very different and I've missed a number of uploads because Mercury retrograde has decided that everything is not going to work. So yeah, technology and me are just not jiving. So I had about 2 or 3 weeks worth of videos recorded and I had only edited a handful of them. And I talked about this on Patreon, but yeah, all of those files are not working. All of them. And I don't really feel like having to re-record them and hope it's gonna work. So I'm taking a break from the camera until I can figure out why. So in the meanwhile, we're going back old school with the phone, but I do have my ring light, so hopefully the lighting's a little bit better, but I know a lot of people complain when I use my phone, so if you're one of those people, sorry, it's gonna be like not the greatest of quality for a little while. So today we are continuing along finally with the wedding series, Witchy wedding series that I've been doing. So today we are talking about picking a venue. So do you have a specific image in mind, such as a historic building or a forest? Basically, what is going to go along with your theming for your wedding? Now for us, we wanted a very rustic, very subtle pagan vibe. So a lot of outdoorsy stuff, but not actually outdoors. Weather's very unpredictable. So for us, we picked an indoor garden, but you could obviously, if you want to get married outside, you can just kind of, keep in mind weather and stuff. Which kind of leads to the next points I have, which is, have you picked a venue outdoors? Like, what's the weather? Because I'm in a few wedding groups and someone had posted about living in Utah, which was like, hey buddy, what's up? And they were getting married in October. And they were like, oh, I don't know, what the weather's gonna be like. And it's like, nobody does, because it can be anywhere. We've had blizzards, it's been 90s, it's been windy, it's been rainy. Any possible weather pattern can happen in October here. So just plan a little ahead if it's gonna be hurricane season where you live. Obviously, it's probably not gonna be the greatest of weather. So just keeping that in mind. Or if you get married on a cliffside, it's probably gonna be windy. And so, kind of keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, if you are doing an outdoor wedding, if your venue has any portable outdoor shelters. One that we had considered and ended up not doing, but they did have this as an option, is if you get married in their outdoor area and the weather turns bad, they have tents that they will set up. And especially in the winter, if it's gonna be a colder day, they do have heaters in them. So they have some things, but do you want to get married in a tent? Keep that in mind, especially if you want to have open flames and stuff like that, a lot of candles. Don't be burning things down. Make sure you are comparing the prices. So when we first started to look, we figured out that pretty much in the state of Utah, your venue is going to cost around $3,000 to $5,000. That's the going rate right now. Currently, when we were looking, it might have gone up by now, but typically it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark. You can find a few that are cheaper. They were not venues we would have preferred. They were very much not in our theme at all. And it was very much just kind of a blank space. White walls, maybe minor things of very traditional just weddings, white fabrics and stuff. And that wasn't really our drive. And then there was others that were way expensive. There were some that were oh, maybe here. And then it was $20,000+ for a night. It's oh, never mind. Never mind completely. No. And so we kind of settled that it's it can't go over 5,000. And that was kind of our range. We ended up getting one a little bit cheaper than that, but it's still expensive. So make sure to compare prices. Even if you're for us, indoor gardens, there's a few that are offered here. So kind of price check, see what one's going to work. Because initially we had one picked and it was about $5,000. And then we ended up finding a different one and it was $2,000 cheaper and a better venue for us. Next kind of section is vendors. So make sure if your venue requires a specific set of vendors. Sometimes it's going to be their own staff. Sometimes they have a preferred list, aka required, and some don't really care. So make sure you are checking that as well because it is a huge problem. One of the venues we had considered, it was going to be about 30-ish, 30, 40 a person for the catering side of things. And with our current venue, you don't have to use preferred vendors. You can choose whoever or do it yourself. And we ended up, because we went through a wedding planner, our catering services are only about $11 a person. Way more affordable than closer to like 30 to 40 per person. We don't have that many people, but like it adds up. Which kind of going along with that, make sure you're comparing the prices, obviously, because like, for example, it might be really cheap, but are they going to do any of the pickup and setup and all of that? Are you going to be responsible for that? Typically they're going to do it, but just always make sure. Also, if they're going to include plates and stuff like that, or do you have to provide it? Things to also consider for your venue is if they allow a DJ or live music. Ours doesn't. So we found out like when we were there and signing the contracts that we couldn't have a DJ, and we're like, I mean, it's not like the biggest of deals for us, but it was one of those that you're like, okay. So basically what we have to do is hope to the gods Spotify doesn't decide to crash on that day at that time. And then we get to have that as our thing. So we're going to have a person that's designated to switch between my wedding playlists on Spotify. And I haven't figured out a way to like make a folder of just the playlists that they need to upload and play, but we'll figure that out. So check what ordinances might be in your area. Theirs is a noise ordinance, so I'm pretty sure their speakers have like a limit of how loud they can make it so that you don't cause the problem. But yeah, you can't have a DJ, can't have live music. Some other things to keep in mind, this section is for events. So is the wedding, like ceremony and reception, going to be in the same place? For us, it is. It's just two separate parts of the same building. But for other people, it's like the same area. Like we've gone to a couple weddings where like one of our friends got married and like the ceremony area is like kind of in the middle, and then they had chairs around it, and that's like the seating for like food, chairs and tables and stuff. They obviously had like the seating for the ceremony, but then it was just chairs kind of around in this garden area. And then our other friend, they had the ceremony here, right behind it is the chairs, and it was like in just one big open area. And they kind of set up it was like the same chairs from the ceremony that moved over to the tables. And then we also had another person that their ceremony was somewhere completely different. We were not invited to that. We just got to go to the reception. So it was just, you show up for food, and it didn't really have a lot of telling of what you're gonna do. The other ones, it's like, yeah, you stay there for the full event. When it's just the reception, always tell your guests if you expect them to stay or if it's just kind of a hangout and then leave situation. Not everyone knows every social cue and what you're expecting from your wedding, especially if it's not what everyone else has experienced. So just also kind of keep that in mind. But if you do end up having it in two separate places, make sure the transition is easy. Don't make people have to drive hours between one location to the other, especially the same day. Like, I mean, it's just, nobody wants to do that. On a witchcraft side of things, if you're going to be creating sacred space and like you're going to be using candles and stuff, make sure you're allowed to do that. Talk to the people at the venue. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be fine with it. They're going to be like, whatever, man. Make sure you ask before you do things like that. Most weddings typically are going to have candles involved, but nowadays with LED lights, a lot of people don't prefer those because an LED candle is not going to burn down their building. An actual candle will. Is your venue easy to get to? If your guests have to hike miles to get to the spot for the ceremony, that's not really accessible. Not a lot of people are able to hike for several miles to get to a spot to then have to hike that same distance all the way back. Our officiant was telling us some stories about it, of having to hike so many miles up a mountain or a cliffside or whatever for the ceremony. And it's like, dude, no. Like, just keep that in mind. If you don't have very fit and active people, don't like make an assumption on your guests' abilities to be able to walk, because a lot of people don't want to talk about the fact that they're out of shape, they have a disability, whatever. They don't want to talk about it and be like, I would love to go to your wedding, but just try and keep people in mind. Yes, the day is about you, but also it's for your guests. With that in mind, is there going to be enough parking? This really applies to those on a budget. If you are doing a backyard wedding or a park wedding, do they have adequate parking spaces? Because parking is like such a deal. And I know in other places driving isn't as huge of a deal. Like other places in the world, like public transport and biking and walking to places is way bigger. But like here, it is not. You need a vehicle to get to a lot of places. Like where we live, there is no public transport for miles. Like there's no buses, there's no trains, there's nothing. Nothing comes out here. So you got Uber and that's it. So just like keep that in mind, that if you are having a backyard wedding and you're a place like us where we don't have any public transport and you have to drive there, you're not taking up like a street or two of people in front of people's houses to have all of your wedding guests get there. Or if you're going to have them park somewhere else and like shuttle them in, how are you going to do that? The logistics, don't be trying to worry about it like a week before the wedding. This is more for those of us who are going to be wearing uncomfy shoes. So when looking at your venue, where are you going to be walking in those shoes? Because 9 times out of 10, the bride or whomever is going to be wearing like heels. And if you are going to be walking downstairs in heels that you were not used to because you're a tennis shoes kind of a person, maybe don't pick a venue that you have to walk downstairs. Or you don't have a long distance to walk. Or if it's in a park, maybe like be careful about like heels and stuff for not only the bride or whomever, but also the guests. Just again, try and think a little ahead and a little about the guests and who's going to be showing up. Also, just try and keep in mind accessibility, especially if you have people with disabilities who are going to be coming to your wedding. Most people are probably going to be fine, but just keep in mind, like especially if you have older people or people in wheelchairs and stuff like that, they're probably not going to want to have like a gravel type of parking lot. One venue that was very expensive had that. And it's like, that's not great for heels, first of all, but also not great for wheelchairs, because that is probably, I mean, I haven't had to drive my own wheelchair in a very long time, but I would imagine that's not easy. I mean, maybe the motorized would be a little bit easier, but still, I don't think that would be fabulous. And also, if there's stairs to get into a place, are they accessible? Looking at you, historic buildings. A lot of people love to get married in there, but if you have people with mobility issues, that's a problem. This is like the biggest thing for those who aren't picking like a very professional designed to have large crowds venue. So like parks, houses, stuff like that, bathrooms. It is like the biggest thing, like above parking probably. People do not want to have to pee in a bush at your wedding. As witchy and pagan and like, oh, but look at us, we're out in the woods, you want to be. Like, people don't want to do that. Your guests don't want to. Plan ahead. You can rent like the portable ones, or if you go to a park, sometimes they'll have ones available. Just kind of keep that in mind. People are going to need to. They're going to be there for hours. Don't expect your guests to go pee in a bush. Other things to keep in mind is how long will you have this venue. One that we looked at, it was like $3,000 if you did a morning wedding. You had to be out by like noon. And then if you wanted an afternoon wedding, you had to be out by like 9. And then they had a couple hours between for cleaning. And it's like, if you did the evening one, it was like $5,000. And you didn't even get the full day at your venue. And others, I've had this question pop up so many times in the wedding groups I'm a part of. Everyone's like, oh, but do I get it for multiple days? Like a day for setup and then a day to clean up? And no, typically not. Like, especially if it's a venue specifically for weddings. No, that's a rarity. Like, they are weddings every single day. That's how ours is. Like, we looked and we booked ours in November for this August. And it is seriously like by December, it like 2 of the 3 major months were already booked. Like June, July, August, and even like sometimes May and September. But like the summer months are big for venues. So like it's not gonna have a day before that you can go clean up because it's already a different wedding. Or, like you can't set up the day before. There's somebody else in there doing their thing, and a day after, same deal. So just keep that in mind, especially when you're looking at venues. If you're gonna have to do a lot of setup, figure out how much time you're gonna need. Also figure out what your vendors are going to need and how much time they're gonna need, because these are questions that you're gonna need to know and have a timeline going of each thing. Like, it is so much planning for like a big wedding, and ours isn't even big, but like when we started planning, we quickly realized everyone involved wants your timeline to begin with. At least a rough idea. So like, and I guess that could be another video topic, but we'll mention it here. But it's really like, sorry, my thing is telling me I have no storage space because again, This is why I don't use it. I need to get a new computer specifically for videos, so it might be a while till we go back to the camera, because like I have Chrome, one tab open, and it's like there's no space. Anyways, so like for vendors, they need to know when the ceremony begins, when do you expect people to eat, when do you want the photographer there. Personally, I do not care about the get ready pictures at all. It's not fun. It's like, that's not my thing. Like my aunt, good Lord, my sister-in-law, and she could honestly be my aunt. My brother and I have quite the age gap, but my sister-in-law and my niece are going to be helping me with hair and makeup. And so like, it's not like, oh, we're going to get our hair done. It's like, if they help me, cool. If not, I'm gonna look just like I do every day. So it doesn't really matter to me. I'm waiting to put my dress on until the very last minute because I'm gonna be setting up stuff with my family. We're setting up the table decor. My bridesmaids and I are gonna be like, we're gonna be busy. So like, I don't need that. I don't care. But some people really want those. I would rather have my photographer there at the end and like take pictures of us leaving in our very fancy car. We're not getting a limo because that's not my speed. We're driving away in an antique car. It's like from, I think, the 50s, but it's beautiful. It's like one of those restored, like it could go to the car show type old car, and the driver's cool. And so we go out under our sparklers and then we get into an old car. It's gonna be magic. I would rather him be there for that than for me running around in jeans and a t-shirt with my hair up, no makeup, and just getting ready for the venue. Like, not the biggest of deals. And I'm not doing like the fancy robes and stuff of like the bride and the bridesmaids and the blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I'm just getting ready. Does your venue allow for sparklers? Most are fine with that. You have to have something to put them out. You have to have like buckets of sand or water or something that you will clean up to put hot sparklers in. Do not set them on grass, you know? That's like kind of, at least our venue, that was their main requirement. They're cool with that, but they don't allow like confetti at all. A lot of venues say no because they have to clean it up every single day and that gets old. Whereas sparklers is just a little bit of ash, maybe. Most of the time they burn, especially for the wedding specific sparklers, they just kind of have the metal and that's it. So as long as you clean that up, you're good. But keep that in mind. So this was a huge perk for our venue, so maybe others will have this as well. But ours has this huge back room of decor that you can borrow day of. So you don't have to go buy a bunch of stuff that you're never gonna use and then you're gonna try and sell and nobody really has great success with that. I see it pop up so many times in these Halloween, like I have a Halloween wedding group, is the main one that I follow, but there's other wedding groups I'm a part of and it's the same kind of deal. People try and sell their decor after and nobody really wants it. They're gonna go buy their own. And so it's nice if your venue just offers it. Like there are so many different things like the sign holders and stuff like that that we can get. So it's just a few things, but it really makes a huge difference. Like again, we don't have to get like the little slabs of wood to put our candles on for the tables. They have those. So, and we also have options of so many, it's just like a giant back room filled with stuff. If you want to have like just really random decor, they've got it. So it's kind of like walking into like kind of an antique shop and you just get to pick and choose what you want, but it's not like old stuff, but you know what I mean? Like if your venue has something like that, it's going to save you so much money. So another thing with our venue that we didn't anticipate and we're like, oh, so ours offers a host. So this is a person that will be there to help with whatever you need the day of, which kind of negates the need for a day of coordinator. So that can save you money. I don't know what exactly ours is going to be doing, if we're going to do both, or if we're just going to do one. Mostly just need to make sure vendors show up. If they don't, how are we going to do this? Like, we worry. So it's like, if the food doesn't show up, our backup plan is ordering pizza. And if the cake doesn't show up, game plan is to send one of the bridesmaids after the ceremony to go to whatever store and go get a cake or two and call it a day. Because I have anxiety, as does most of my family, so we plan ahead. So like, Would that fall on the day of coordinator? Or can the host handle to make sure like the vendors are there and getting set up? Do we need to worry about that? I haven't gotten to that part of the wedding planning yet, but that's things that I worry about. So our venue, though, it does come with a host. So I'm planning on their whole job is my Spotify playlist of like, please, can you just change the songs? That's all I care about. All you need to do is like, here is, and it's only for the ceremony too. I don't care about after that really. Like, I'm not even sure we're going to be doing any dancing because like, that's not what we do. Like, it's mostly just going to be background noise and just mingling because it's 90% my family. So I'm just going to be chit-chatting with people all night. But like, when the procession starts and the bridesmaids and everything go up, and then it switches over to my song as I walk up, and then whatever song we're gonna have playing in the background during our ceremony, if we have anything playing in the background during our ceremony, I don't know. Again, haven't gotten to there yet, but yeah, day of coordinator and a host, see if they offer that at your venue. And then very lastly, what cleaning services do they do? How much do you need to do? Because I didn't realize this until we actually finally got into the florist things. But like florists, they come, they put up your flowers, they leave. They do not come back. So you are in charge of taking down those flowers, all of them. So like for us, we're having the archway and then we're having flowers on said archway. Guess who gets to take those off? My mom and my bridesmaids. Because yeah, they zip tie the flowers on and then they leave. So it's up to somebody, probably not the bridal party of, you know, the bride, groom, bride, whatever. I don't know what the non-binaries would call their spouses. I don't know. Anyways, the married people do not typically have to deal with that. It's going to be somebody who's helping you, but they're going to need to know what to clean up, which includes flowers. But like our catering, they're planning on cleaning up after themselves when they leave, so we don't have to worry about cleaning the kitchen. But, you know, just stuff like that. Like, who's going to be doing the cleanup? 9 times out of 10, it's you. It's not the venue. They will charge you if they have to clean. So anyways, that is picking a venue. I'm sure the editing on this is super fun because iMovie is awesome on the iPhone. One of these days I will get me a like Mac computer specifically for video editing, but they're expensive. I want to use iMovie, but I don't have like $1,500 just sitting aside because I'm getting married. That's where all the money goes. So anyways, that is going to be it for today. I would love to hear what you kind of had in mind when you picked your venue or as you're looking for venues. There's so many other things to keep in mind. So make sure to leave those in the comments down below and help other people who are planning their weddings. And until next time, thank you so much for watching and I will see you all soon.